You look them in the eye. You shake their hand. You nod politely as they speak. But literally 3 seconds later, a terrifying realization washes over you. You have absolutely no idea what this person's name is. It has vanished. Deleted. As if the audio track of your life just skipped a beat. You are still smiling, still holding eye contact. But behind your calm expression, there is a frantic panic. You replay the last 10 seconds in your mind, desperate to find the echo of the sound. But there is nothing there. Just a blank space where their identity should be. You are not alone in this. And more importantly, you are not broken. You are not rude. You are not developing early onset memory loss. And you are not uncaring. What just happened in that 3-second window is not a failure of intelligence. It is a sophisticated, albeit inconvenient, mechanism of your unconscious mind. While modern neuroscience talks about cognitive load and attention deficits, the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung offered a far more profound, and frankly, more disturbing explanation over a century ago. He suggested that we do not forget things by accident. We forget them because, deep down, in the shadow of our psyche, we decided not to remember. To understand why you struggle with names while you can remember the lyrics to a song you haven't heard in a decade, or the face of a stranger you passed on the street, we have to stop looking at memory as a hard drive that randomly malfunctions. We have to start looking at it as a gatekeeper. Carl Jung believed that the conscious mind is like a small island in a vast ocean of the unconscious. Everything that lands on that island, every name, every face, every number, is allowed there by permission only. If a name doesn't stick, it's not because the island was full, it's because the gatekeeper threw it back into the ocean. The question you should be asking isn't, why is my memory bad? The question is, why did my unconscious mind reject this person? It begins with the persona. This is one of Jung's most famous concepts, derived from the Latin word for the masks worn by actors in ancient Rome. The persona is the face you present to the world. It is the polite employee, the charming guest, the attentive listener. When you are introduced to someone new, your psychic energy, or libido as Jung called it, is often almost entirely consumed by the maintenance of this mask. You are not actually listening to the other person. You are unconsciously monitoring yourself. Am I standing straight? Is my handshake firm enough? Do I look interested? Is there spinach in my teeth? Your ego is so preoccupied with the performance of meeting someone that it has no bandwidth left for the actual content of the meeting. The name is external data. Your behavior is internal survival. The brain, forced to choose between social survival maintaining the mask and data storage, chooses survival every time. You didn't hear their name because, in that moment, you were the only person in the room. This is not narcissism. It is a defense mechanism. The more anxious you are, the heavier the mask becomes, and the more deaf you become to the outside world. But it goes deeper than just social anxiety or distraction. Jung proposed that our interactions are not just person to person. They are unconscious to unconscious. When you meet someone, before you even speak, your intuition is scanning them. You are reading micro-expressions, pheromones, and energetic shifts. If your intuition, that swift, irrational function of the psyche, senses that this person holds no value for your future, or perhaps represents a threat to your psychological stability, it will not tag the file. Think about it. You rarely forget the name of someone you are intensely attracted to. You rarely forget the name of someone who terrifies you. You rarely forget the name of someone who offers you a massive opportunity. In those cases, the emotional charge sears the name into your memory. The forgetfulness happens in the gray zone, the mundane, the polite, the irrelevant. Jung would argue that your forgetting is a form of ruthless honesty. Your conscious mind is smiling and saying, "Nice to meet you," but your unconscious is saying, "This encounter is temporary. Do not waste energy storing this label." This creates a fascinating paradox. The people who are often the most empathetic, the ones who feel the atmosphere of a room most deeply, are frequently the ones who are worst at names. Why? Because they are reading the essence of the person, not the label. A name is just a linguistic tag, a social convention. It is arbitrary. John or Sarah tells you nothing about the soul of the human standing in front of you. If you are a person who leans towards Jungian introverted intuition, you are likely absorbing the vibe of the person. You remember that they looked sad behind their smile. You remember that they felt authoritative. You remember the color of their aura or the weight of their presence. You are processing the deep data, the archetypal reality of the human being. The name is just surface noise. You filtered it out to focus on the signal. This brings us to the uncomfortable concept of the shadow. Jung described the shadow as the unknown dark side of the personality, everything we deny, reject, or wish to hide about ourselves. Sometimes, we forget a name because the person standing in front of us activates a subtle projection of our shadow. Perhaps they possess a trait that you repress in yourself. Maybe they are too loud, and you repress your own desire to be heard. Maybe they are arrogant, and you fight your own inner arrogance. The irritation or discomfort caused by this unconscious projection causes the mind to recoil. You want to distance yourself from them. Forgetting their name is a passive-aggressive act of the psyche. It is a way of saying, "You do not exist in my world." It is a subtle form of annihilation. Of course, you don't do this on purpose. If you did, it would be rude, but because it happens in the unconscious, it feels like an accident. "Oh, I'm so terrible with names," you say, but the truth might be that your shadow simply didn't want to let them in. This mechanism protects you. If we remembered absolutely everyone we met, our psyche would collapse under the weight of irrelevant connections. Forgetting is a physiological necessity. However, when it happens chronically, when it interferes with your life and makes you feel isolated or incompetent, it signals an imbalance. It suggests that you are either too wrapped up in your own persona, essentially living in a hall of mirrors where no one else can enter, or you are so detached from the sensory world, the world of facts and concrete details, that you are floating in a sea of abstractions. The modern world demands we function like computers, filing away data instantly, but you are a biological entity with a soul that operates on meaning, not data processing. Before we dive into how the collective unconscious plays a role in this, and how you can actually use Jungian integration to fix this without silly memory tricks, there is something you need to consider about the way you consume information right now. We are often so flooded with noise that we lose the signal. If you want to dive deeper into the architecture of your own mind and uncover why you do the things you do, you might want to consider subscribing to this channel. We don't just scratch the surface here, we explore the depths. Now, let's look at the typology of forgetting. Jung noticed that sensation types and intuition types handle this very differently. If you are a sensation type, you engage with reality through your five senses. You might forget the name, but you remember the red tie, the smell of their cologne, the roughness of their hand. The name is abstract. The sensation is real. If you are a sensation type, the name is abstract. The sensation is real. You might walk away from a party saying, "I met that guy with the scar on his chin who smelled like tobacco." But you cannot recall if his name was Mark or Matthew. The sensory data overwrote the linguistic data. On the other hand, if you are an intuitive type, someone who looks for patterns, future possibilities, and abstract meanings, you are even more prone to this specific type of amnesia. When an intuitive meets a stranger, they aren't seeing a person, they are seeing a concept. They are seeing a potential business partner, a potential threat, or a mystery to be solved. They are looking through the person, not at them. The name is just a surface detail, like the color of the wallpaper in a house you are about to buy. You don't care about the wallpaper, you care about the foundation. Your brain discards the name because it is focusing on the structural integrity of the human being in front of you. But Jung goes further. He brings us to the concept of the complex. This is where it gets slightly more personal and uncomfortable. A complex is an emotionally charged group of ideas or images in the unconscious. Sometimes, you forget a name not because you are distracted, but because the name itself triggers a microscopic defense mechanism. Let's say you had a childhood bully named David. 30 years later, you meet a wonderful, kind man named David. You smile, you shake his hand, and 5 seconds later, his name is gone. Why? Because your unconscious mind heard the sound David, associated it with pain or humiliation from the past, and immediately censored it to protect your conscious state. You aren't just forgetting a word, you are avoiding a micro-trigger. The psyche is incredibly protective. It will sacrifice social etiquette to preserve your emotional equilibrium. This brings us to the shadow of authority. Jung noticed that people often forget the names of those they perceive as superiors, or those they secretly envy. If you are introduced to someone who has achieved exactly what you want to achieve, your shadow, that part of you that holds your jealousy, your insecurity, and your unlived potential might act out. By forgetting their name, you are unconsciously bringing them down a peg, you are stripping them of their title. It is a tiny, invisible act of rebellion. You aren't doing it to be mean. Your unconscious is doing it to keep your ego from feeling small. It's a way of saying, you aren't that important to me. Even if consciously, you think they are very important. Then there is the issue of the collective unconscious versus the individual label. In the deep history of our species, we didn't use names the way we do now. We recognized people by their tribe, their role, their energy. Names are a relatively modern, bureaucratic invention in the grand timeline of human evolution. Our primitive brain, the part that Jung was so fascinated by, is wired for face recognition, for threat detection, for emotional resonance. It is not wired for the arbitrary assignment of vocal sounds to specific faces. When you struggle with names, You are essentially experiencing a conflict between your ancient biological operating system and the modern software of society. Your brain is saying, I know who this is, I don't need the code word. This creates a split. You have the social you, the persona desperately trying to be polite, and the animal you, the self, which simply does not care about the label. The tension between these two causes the mental glitch. Have you ever noticed that you almost never forget a piece of gossip if someone whispers, "That guy over there cheated on his taxes"? You will remember that fact forever. Why? Because that information has survival value. It tells you something about the trustworthiness of the tribe member. The name Steve has zero survival value. Your brain is ruthlessly efficient. It only keeps what keeps you alive or gives you an advantage. Now, pause for a second and think about the last time this happened to you. Was it at a networking event? A family gathering? A date? I'm willing to bet that the moment you forgot the name was the exact moment you started worrying about what you were going to say next. This is the ego inflation trap. When our ego inflates to fill the room, there is no space for the other. We are not listening. We are waiting to speak. We are rehearsing our lines. The other person is just a prop in the movie of our life. Jung believed that true connection requires a lowering of the ego, a surrender. When we are in a state of high ego alert, trying to impress, trying to be liked, we are impenetrable. Information bounces off us. It's interesting because there is a distinct pattern here. Some of you watching this are probably thinking, I remember faces perfectly, but names are impossible. While others might be thinking, I can remember the name, but I wouldn't recognize them in a lineup. It's rarely both. This split is a huge clue into how your internal wiring works. If you're brave enough to admit it, let me know in the comments, are you a face rememberer or a name rememberer? It's a quick way to see which cognitive function you're leading with, and you'll see you're definitely not the only one struggling with this. But here is where the story takes a darker turn. Jung suggested that chronic forgetfulness, not just of names, but of appointments, of keys, of promises, is a sign of psychic entropy. It means your energy is not flowing outward into the world. It is flowing inward, getting trapped in a loop of internal dialogue. You are so consumed by your own inner world, your own daydreams, or your own anxieties, that the outer world is becoming ghost-like. The people you meet are becoming phantoms. You shake their hand, but you aren't really there. You are a ghost in the room. This dissociation is a defense against a world that feels too overwhelming. By not learning names, you are keeping the world at arm's length. You are preventing intimacy. Because once you name something, you have a relationship with it. If you keep people nameless, they remain strangers, and strangers cannot hurt you. This is the defense of the introverted feeling type who is protecting a sensitive core. It is not stupidity, it is armor. But this armor is heavy. It isolates you. It creates a reality where you are the only protagonist and everyone else is a blur. And eventually, this leads to a sense of unreality, a feeling that you are drifting through life without ever grabbing hold of it. Jung's solution to this wasn't memory games. He didn't tell his patients to use mnemonics or repeat the name 10 times. He told them to wake up. He told them to integrate the shadow. He told them to look at why they were rejecting the world. So, how do we fix this? How do we use Jungian psychology to hack our own resistance and actually start remembering? It requires a shift in consciousness, not a trick. It requires moving from the persona, the mask, to the self, the center. When you operate from the self, you are no longer performing. You are witnessing, and the witness remembers everything. The witness sees everything. The witness records everything. The moment you stop trying to be interesting and start being interested, your memory channels open up. This is what Jung called the flow of libido, not sexual energy, but psychic energy. When your libido is stuck in your own head, worrying about your impression, the bridge to the other person is broken. But when you push that energy outward, when you genuinely become curious about the mystery of the stranger standing in front of you, the name sticks effortlessly. You have to stop treating the name as a label and start treating it as a symbol. Jungians know that the unconscious mind thinks in symbols, images, and myths, not in text. So, here is the counterintuitive strategy for the intuitive types who struggle. Don't try to remember the sound of the name. Visualize it. If you meet a rose, do not store the letters R-O-S-E. Immediately flash an image of a red flower in your mind's eye. If you meet a Mark, imagine a check mark stamped on his forehead. If you meet someone with a name that has no meaning to you, invent one. Connect the sound to a weird, vivid image. This works because you are translating a boring left brain audit the word into a vibrant right brain archetype the image. You are speaking the language of your unconscious. You are hacking the gatekeeper. By giving the name a visual weight, you are telling your primitive brain, this is not just noise. This is a totem. This is important. But there is a deeper level of work to be done here, Jung said. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You have to confront the part of you that simply doesn't care. Next time you meet someone and you feel that familiar fog rolling in, catch yourself. Admit to yourself. Right in that moment, I am drifting away. I am judging this person as irrelevant. That moment of radical honesty is powerful. By bringing the rejection from the shadow into the light, you disarm it. You can then consciously choose to re-engage. You can say to yourself, I am going to honor this person's existence by holding on to their name. It becomes a spiritual practice, a discipline of the soul. It is no longer about social etiquette. It is about expanding your own consciousness to include another human being. And remember the concept of synchronicity. Jung believed that there are no accidents. Who is to say that the person whose name you are about to forget isn't the exact messenger you need in your life right now? By dismissing them, by letting their identity slip through your fingers like sand, you might be missing a vital piece of your own puzzle. The universe might be trying to introduce you to a guide, a partner, or a lesson, and your ego is too busy checking its reflection to notice. When you start to view every introduction as a potential synchronicity, your attention shifts. You lean in. The adrenaline of possibility sharpens your senses. The name becomes a key, and we rarely lose the keys to doors we actually want to open. So, stop beating yourself up. You are not broken. You are simply a complex machine operating on ancient software in a modern world. Your brain prioritizes survival, emotion, and essence over bureaucratic labels. That is a strength, not a weakness. But it is a strength that needs to be tamed. You have the capacity to remember everyone, but first, you have to decide to leave your own island. You have to be willing to drop the mask, silence the noise of your own anxiety, and step into the reality of the other person. The next time someone says, "Hi, I'm..." Take a breath, look them in the eye. Ignore your own internal monologue. See the human being, not the social obligation. Turn their name into an image, and watch how your memory, which you thought was terrible, suddenly becomes a steel trap. It was never about capacity. It was always about connection. It is time to stop forgetting and start witnessing. The world is full of characters, and every single one of them has a name that unlocks a story. Don't let those stories fade into the background noise. If you found yourself nodding along to this, if you recognized your own mind in these descriptions, leave a comment below telling me which part hit closest to home. Are you the anxious forgetter or the intuitive abstractor? And if you know someone who can never remember your name, send this video to them. It might be the most subtle hint you ever drop.